Hey guys, welcome back to my video. So before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and click in the bell icon and also click in the like button. If you haven't visited my Instagram page yet, please go visit it and the link would be pasted below in the description. At the same time, if you're looking for some study guides and study notes, you'd be able to find me on Teachers Pay Teachers, where in this next 2 weeks I'd be sharing IGCSE study guides for you. If there is any specific poems that you'd like me to create an analysis on, please email me on my email address, which will also be pasted below this YouTube video. And if you have any questions, you can always comment below, and feel free to comment how you felt about this video, because it would be very encouraging for me. Now, I've realized a lot of you just watch this video and you do not subscribe. I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe this video, because it takes a lot of effort to create all these PowerPoints and study materials, and it'd be a very encouraging and motivation for me if you'd actually subscribe first before you watch this video. Yeah, so that's about it. So let's get started. So as I've said, section B is the requirements and the overall criteria for the reasons on how you're being tested is the same as section A. So if you haven't watched the first video, I'd suggest you to hop on to the previous one first before you actually go on and watch this video. So I'd be skipping through this point, but you can pause it, I'd say, for 5 minutes and read through this entire section. As I've said, it's repeated and it's the same as section A. So, moving on, how do you actually answer extract questions? So, if you've realized, section B is generally about prose, and you'd be tested on extract questions and full text questions. So, it's always important to have a very good understanding on how to answer the extract questions. So, if you continue watching, you'd be able to see how there are 6 steps to answer extract questions, and there are a few other steps that you can include to answer full text questions. So continue watching if you're interested. So step 1 is always the idea of reading the question meticulously. Now, what do I mean by this? It's always important to take your time, read the question, spend as much time as you need, about 2 to 3 minutes, on reading the question and understanding if it fits your strengths and if you'd be able to answer this accurately. So you have to begin by deconstructing the question. For example, let's say if the question is how does a specific writer showcase auditory imagery in this text or in this extract? So what is the keywords here? The keywords is how, the keywords is auditory imagery. So these are the keywords that I believe is very important to be able to understand. And why have I chosen not to highlight the writer's name? So if you've watched my previous video, you'd be able to see that I don't include the writer's name as a major keyword, because in any case, I believe it's common sense and that should not be considered as a keyword. Now, keywords, I apologize for that. Okay, so keywords are generally like the question word, like how, what, why. And then the second keyword is usually what the examiner generally wants you to include in your essay. So auditory imagery, you need to find some examples of auditory imagery in your extract. So those are the ways of how you will deconstruct your question. And then you have to highlight the keywords. You need to understand, what does the question mean? Do you understand what the question is asking you? Is there anything that you don't understand? Is there a specific word that you don't get? If you don't get the word or the question word, it's always a good idea not to choose that question to avoid any risky sort of chances, and make sure that you're not losing your marks just because you don't understand a question word. So the brief and sort of main idea in this first step is to write down all your answers to the question in a very brief sort of format on top of the extract to keep you focused. So it's always good that once you've read the question, step 1, step 2, deconstruct it, step 3, sort of write your answers, write your conceptualized key points in a very, very brief format on top of the extract so you sort of know which direction you're going in. So these 3 are like sub steps of step 1. So deconstructing, deconstructing is step 2, understanding step 1, and step 3, writing answers. So these are 3 sub steps in step 1. Step 2 is, of course, reading the extract. Now, firstly, you would do it in a very brief way. So the first time you do it, you read it in a very brief way and jottle down all keywords plus points when reading. Step 2, the sub-step of step 2 is when you read it the second time, choose the quotes. Now, for me, 2 times is actually enough, but for some students, you'd take more time, and I'd say it's completely fine. It comes with practice, which is the reason why I'd be including some past papers in the description below just for paper 1 for now, so that you can go and try to practice and try to implement these steps when you're practicing within time conditions, and let me know how you felt about it in the comment section below. So you always have to think about the set text. What are some of the dynamic actions occurring in this text? Who are the characters that are involved in this overall extract? Why are some of the actions more significant than the others? Do I need to include the minor actions in the essay? What are my strongest points? Always remember that you're including your strongest points in the first paragraph so that it somehow grasps the examiner's and marker's attention, and you'd somehow like make them feel like your essay is very strong. Always think about the mood, the tone, the style, the important themes, what the writer's trying to show us, and what's the overall intention. Step 3 is, of course, thinking about the big ideas, the bigger themes. Now, obviously, you do this in step 2, but in step 3, I'd say you're trying to sort of pinpoint the themes in a more specific sort of format. So brainstorm the keywords. Think of very conceptualized sort of themes. If your theme is 1 sentence long, I'd say that is not a theme. A theme should only be revolving around 5 to 6 words at maximum. If you have 2 words or 1 word, I'd say that's perfect. So always make sure you have a mental note of it, whether you're keeping it at the back of your head or you're writing it down on top of the extract on your paper. See what works best for you. Personally, for me, I'd say I've always jotted down my sort of ideas on paper. I do not keep a mental note, but if you're a person who has strong memory and you know which direction you're going in because you've done so much past paper, or this is some sort of inborn talent, so feel free to do it whichever way works best for you. Step 4 is to go through the entire extract again and highlight all the important quotes that's important. Step 5 is to think, what can you say about the examples? What are some of the explanation that comes on with these evidence? Is there any sort of conceptualized points that you can use to link it with these evidence? The evidence is your quotes, the highlighted quotes that you've done in step 4. Try to see if you can include more than 1 quotes. I think that'd be really good. Step 6, of course, is planning and outlining the entire essay. Try to add up all the points and all the evidences together side by side, and take some time to see if they're really relevant to the question, because during your planning stage it gives you a better idea if you're going in the right direction. So I'd say this is really a good way to do things. The next thing that you need to know is how to answer full text questions. So make sure that you're reading the question and sort of deconstructing it. Okay, so after answering all the full text questions, it's always a good idea to read the question and deconstruct it. So this is something we've done in the previous stage with the extract questions as well. Try to highlight all the keywords and try to see whether you know what they mean. If you don't know what they mean, it's always a good idea to not do that question. Again, brainstorm all your initial ideas and try to write it on top of the extract. Try to scribble it down for about 2 to 5 minutes. And then, of course, have a brief plan of your answer, which goes the same for the extract questions as well in section B. And then, of course, write up your answers with your time management given the amount of time you have left. A very important note is that unless you remember quotes, it's always important to paraphrase, because if you just sort of memorizing it but you didn't memorize it properly, there can be grammar mistakes, so make sure you're paraphrasing all your quotes to the best of your ability. So this is basically it for paper 1. I'd like to mention a little bit about my tutoring section before I move on. So this is particularly for my tutoring sections. I'd like to mention that most of my tutoring will occur online. However, if there is some other request for outdoor tutoring, please make sure that you actually specify it in your email whenever you email me, and this is my email address for your reference. So you'd be able to get a more detailed weekly analysis on short stories, plays, films, and poems. The setting of homework will be a must, but usually they're very subtle and very minor, which usually involves pre-reading before the lesson and personal analysis before lesson. So making sure you're actually reading the set text before you come to lesson to make sure we're fully utilizing the time in class. Weekly marking and discussion. So let's say if you're asked to do a written essay as a homework, there will be weekly marking for sure, and there will be discussions made during lessons with personalized feedbacks to make sure that you're going on the right track. And then there would be also assessment guidance with exam practices embedded during the lesson in between. There will be a free introductory discussion for those who are interested in the tutoring sessions with about 20 minutes. This introductory discussion is for me to understand your needs, to know what syllabus you're working on, and for me to better prepare the lessons. However, let's say if you know exactly what you want to study and you don't need these 20 minutes, you don't need this 20 minutes as an introductory discussion, you can simply message and email me on my email address, which is written below here, and you can just mention what exactly you want to study. Let's say if you don't have anything specific you want to study and you just need guidance to get the top scores, that's perfectly fine, as I do have experience on doing so. So I'd say thank you so much for listening. I'd like to mention that I have a DSC, so if you're a DSC student or if you plan to be a DSC student in the future, this is only for the local Hong Kong students. And let's say if you're studying the literature examination, I have a study guide which is available on my Instagram, and my Instagram account is written below here. If you are a currently IGCSE student, which I believe you should be as you're watching this video, you'd be able to get a study guide if you email me. However, I'd like to mention that this is currently in progress, so you can email me to pre-order it. You'd be able to get a PDF and a PPT version of these slides, the slides that I've used for this video, if you email me, so feel free to do that as well. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the bell icon before you leave. Yeah, thank you so much.